what kind of jiu-jitsu politics have you run into once you opened your school?
I guess I'm kind of low key, so I'm fortunate I don't have to deal with much of it. And also I think because I'm not affiliated like 10th Planet or Henzo or Alliance, I'm just Iron War. So I think that maybe is what keeps me out of it. We have some competitors, but I don't currently actively compete, so maybe that keeps me out of it as well. Especially like Alpharetta, where it is just slammed with people. I mean, I think there's just so many people here that I think you can have multiple gyms, and each gym is different. Like my gym is run different than the other 7 or whatever gyms are in the area. And people are just going to land where they want to be. Like I said, I like to train with competitors and train almost competitively, even though I'm not actively competing. We have a hobbyist gym for the most part with high-level competitors as well. That's how I always like to train. I trained at a pretty high level. I was always at Alliance training with those killers, Paul's, 10th Planet, Matt Serra's. So I run the gym that way, right?
Welcome back to the BJJ Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ford. My guest today is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's also a black belt in 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. He was a sparring partner for some big names in the UFC, including Matt Serra, Ali Akinta, and Pete Sells, just to name a few. He's also a former New York City firefighter and a New York City police officer. He's also a military veteran, and he served as a TAC-P in the U.S. Air Force's Elite Special Warfare Team. Today, he runs his own school out of Iron Horse Jiu-Jitsu in Alpharetta, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be joined today by a good friend of mine and someone who's had a big impact on my jiu-jitsu personally, Anthony Budion. How are you today, Tony?
Good, man. How you doing, man? Thanks for having me, bro. This is super
Of course.
Cool.
Dude, I'm stoked to have you here, man. You're someone that I feel like really needs more highlight in jiu-jitsu. And you put in a lot of work with your school. You're also one of the most knowledgeable people I've come across in my personal training, and you've been super generous with that knowledge as well. So I appreciate that. And
thanks,
I'm
bro.
looking forward to sharing your story with everyone. So thanks for taking the time.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Yes. Tony, speaking of your story, tell us where you're from originally and what life was like before you found jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. So I was born in East New York, Brooklyn. I stayed there for a little bit. I don't even remember how long. I was pretty young. But most of my family, especially ones that migrated from Italy, we all kind of ended up in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, which is kind of where everyone lives. It's Italian, right?
Yeah.
And then, so my parents got divorced when I was pretty young, so we kind of moved around a lot. I was probably at a new school every year in my life up until basically high school. So after all that bouncing around and stuff, I kind of settled in East Rockaway, which is a small town on Long Island. It's almost Queens. It's right by JFK Airport. And then went to high school. Right out of high school, I wasn't a school kind of person. I hated sitting in a desk, sitting in a room all day. So I went straight into the military. I think a month. Literally graduated in June, and in August I was in basic training. Yeah.
That's incredible, man. Now, I mentioned in your intro that you were a TAC-P in the Air Force. Would you mind explaining what exactly a TAC-P is? Like, what do you do in that position?
Yeah. I actually didn't start out as a TAC-P. I started out, that's kind of what got me hooked in the Air Force, as a pararescue. PJ is what I went in as. That's probably one of the hardest special operations forces to get into. And I was really good, physically with it, but mentally at 18, I couldn't do it. I dropped. And they put me in security forces, which is like an MP, kind of like infantry kind of thing. Just to make a long story short, I got out of active duty, did some work with New York City, went back in the guard, and wanted a second shot at that special warfare. So I went in as TAC-P. So what TAC-P is they redid everything. I got out in 2011. So what it was when I was there was you have 2 guys in the Air Force, a ROMAD and a JTAC, and they would get aligned with conventional units, Army units, Marines, anybody, or special operation units or other agencies. And, when the going got real tough, when they were getting overrun, we were the guys calling in close air support, also just airstrikes, getting the pilots and munitions on the target, or, as they say, warheads on foreheads. So that was our job. So we were kind of like the last, like, hey man, we like these guys. A lot of the combat guys like us. I know the Air Force gets a lot of shit from the other branches. They call us the chair force, but the Air Force Special Operations is special warfare is legit, man. So yeah, so that's what we did. It's cool.
Now, I've heard a lot of the jealousy from other branches comes from some of the perks you guys get, though, because you guys get some pretty sweet perks. I've heard like the food and the cafeteria and like the lodging. It's supposed to be way better. So it sounds like a lot of hate from the other branches who aren't eating as good as well. Or yeah.
So I was I'm not trying to have any like stolen valor here. I never deployed as a TAC-P. Some of my friends did. I deployed when I was security forces. And yeah, I was like living in a tent in the desert, but every Friday night, man, we had lobster tails, steak, like, and then the army dudes are like, yo, like, we're hardcore, you're not hardcore. And I'm like, we're doing the same job, but I'm sleeping in an air conditioned tent with an Xbox, and you're like sleeping under a Humvee in the sand. I'm like, so whatever, bro. I'm like, I'm good. I'm happy with my choice. That's all. No knock on the other branches. I love all the other branches, but it's a healthy back and forth between us,
That's got to build some animosity, though. If you're watching the Air Force guys eating lobster tails and you're in like a dirt tent, like ripping open an MRE and like pouring hot water into like what's supposed to be peaches and cream of some kind, that's gotta make you look over at those guys and be like, man, these guys are assholes.
Yeah. But then on the flip side, like TAC-Ps are on Army posts, so you don't really get those benefits as TAC-Ps, which was also kind of cool because the Army doesn't know who we were, and then the Air Force doesn't know who you are, so you're kind of like sort of left alone. You know what I'm saying? Which was always good. When the big government isn't looking at you as much, it's always a better thing, right? So yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. About you've been a New York City cop, you've been a New York City firefighter, and you've been calling in. You're in a position where you called in like close air support stuff. It sounds like you like a lot of peace and tranquility in your days. You're like a kind of a very like Zen kind of person.
Well, I mean, it's like I guess I'm a Gemini, right? So they say we have two sides. I mean, fire, you're saving lives, and then TAC-P, I mean, you can look at it as saving lives. I mean, you're saving friendly lives, but you're also taking lives. So I mean, yeah, it's a little both sides, right? So the true Gemini, I guess. Yeah.
So after the service, you got into the fire department. Is that how the timeline went?
Yeah. So the timeline, I got out of active duties just like right after 9/11. So I got held in a little bit on stop loss where they're like, cause you sign up for 4 years, but you really sign up for 8. 4 of it is inactive duty and they can hold you. Now, obviously after 9/11, I was supposed to get out. They held me in for, I forget how many more months. But I got out shortly after 9/11. Dude, I didn't know what to do with myself. I was working at a gas station in Jersey because that's where I was stationed. And you can't pump your own gas in Jersey. So I was like, I mean, dude, what do I do, man? So I just was doing that. My wife, who I met in the Air Force, was still active duty. And she happened to get a gig being a recruiter in the Bronx. And I got on with the NYPD because I applied to the NYPD. I wanted to be a firefighter, but sometimes it took 10 years to get on that job. Unfortunately, after 9/11, because of the losses they had, they started hiring quicker because guys were retiring when they would stay over their 20. It was 20 to retire. Guys would do 25, 30 years. And now it's like, hey, what if this happens again and, I don't make it? So because of the losses that they had and guys retiring, they started hiring quicker. So I didn't know that. I got on with the NYPD because at that time their pension systems lined up. So it was like, well, I can pump gas and sit here, for who knows how long until the FDNY calls me, or get on with the NYPD. And if it's 10 years, I have 10 years into their pension system and I can switch. And that's basically what I did. I was only on the NYPD for about 2 years, but it was cool, man. It was, I got on the subway and the transit system there. Man, about 6 months out of the academy, I was doing plain clothes, so kind of hopping around on trains, looking like a college kid. I did that for about, a year and a half, and then FDNY called, and I switched. I went over. Yeah. So that was it. So yeah, and then from the FDNY is when I went back and did TAC-P. I did it in the Guard, so I didn't have to leave. I didn't have to leave the fire job because I was not going to leave that job. I loved that job, but I took a leave of absence. to go do that. And then you can be in the guard and be a firefighter in New York City. So that's what I did.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow. Yeah. So I didn't realize a lot of these experiences overlapped. That's really cool, man.
Yeah, just those two, just those. Yeah.
I imagine whenever I think about being a cop, like if I imagine what it's like to be a cop, you think of like what city would be the craziest city. New York City's got to be top of the list. I mean, that's,
yeah,
100%. There's not a lot of other places where they're just more insane.
I never worked for any other city, but I mean, again, like, I don't remember if it was the fire academy, police academy. One of the instructors' first day was like, "Congratulations, you got a front row ticket to the best show on earth," and absolute 100%. Like, dude, I would tell stories every day when I got home, and then I realized like no one believes these stories because it's like so outrageous, but it's true. They were true, and it's just like I'm not even saying anything anymore, you know,
dude. If in New York City sometimes is almost like not even a real place. It's like another. It's and then when you go to the subways underneath that's like a whole nother like.
Yeah, there's underground worlds, bro. Yeah, there's underground worlds. Me and Alec, he's always sending me crazy videos from New York, and I'm sending them to him like, bro, it's not a real place, because he loves it up there too. Alec, he's always in Jersey. Yeah, he loves it up there. Yeah, so he's always sending me stuff, and I'm sending him stuff. There's crazy things that happen in the city, you know. So yeah.
Give me your favorite story working the subway system in New York City. Do you have a favorite memory?
Favorite memory,
or just a craziest situation that you can recall that you're able to share?
Yeah, like a funny story or something. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to like talk about some of that stuff, but like, I mean, I guess I'll give you a fire story, because firemen are notoriously the biggest ball breakers out there.
Yeah.
Like, dude, and I worked in Brooklyn, so it was just like all alpha, like Italians and whatever. So, yeah, I'm sure I'm gonna get some hate on this, but I won't name names. But we had this dude that came into the firehouse, and when you're a probie, you're brand new, you just got to keep your mouth shut, man. You got to keep your mouth shut, take the ball break in, do what you got to do. And this guy, he was a volunteer on Long Island, so he thought like, oh, I got seniority or whatever. And it's like, no, bitch, wash the dishes. Like, you're not any better than us, right? So he happened to be kind of chubby, kind of fat, right? So we were like, I mean, this is like fat shaming. Someone's going to hate on me for this, but like anytime, and this is like early 2000s. So like we just had like a disposable camera, and we would keep it at the kitchen table, right? And anytime we would like take a bite of something, like he didn't know who had the camera. So like I would snap a photo, and it just made him super like self-conscious. Like he'd be like mid bite, and I'm like, snap a photo. He's like, damn it. Now he's looking at me, and I handed the camera to someone else, right? So then he's looking at me. I'm like, what? Like with my hands up. So then he goes to take a bite. Now the other guy takes a photo. So we made a collage of this dude just like eating, and it was like basically making like all he does is eat. Long story short, you carry a lot of different things when you're a firefighter, like on your bunker gear and stuff. So one of it is door chocks, which are like wooden triangles, if you don't know what a door chock is. And you just get into the practice. Anytime you go in a door, chock in the door, just for various reasons. You don't want to get trapped. You don't want the hose line to get kinked, stuff like that. So we're going into, I don't know if it was a fire or just another run. But this dude, I won't even say his nickname. I almost said his nickname. This dude's going in the building, right? And the chief's like, hey, so-and-so, chock the door. So he goes in his pocket, and we had taken all his chocks down, put Snickers bars in. So he comes out. He's like, yo, chock the door. Like, it's like urgent, right? He starts pulling out Snickers bars. Like, what the hell, dude? He's like, what is that? Get a freaking chalk. And he keeps pulling them out, because we put like, I don't know, 5 of them in there, you know. It's just, and to be honest, that's not even that bad. But yeah. I'll throw that story out there just to say.
That's hilarious. Was he able to jam the Snicker bar into the bottom of the door and actually chalk the door? No, it didn't work. I mean, yeah, okay.
You carry them in your helmet, right, too, but like for some reason, like no one wants to take the helmet ones. They always get the other ones first. I think because they look cool. I don't know. Or it's like, hey, that's my last dish. Let me take the one out of my helmet. But yeah, that was pretty funny. But yeah, dude, some of the ball breaking went down. I mean, honestly, like I have probably some of the toughest skin just because of that. Like, it's just like, yeah, it was fun, but it was brutal at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, dude, it's like you said, it's like these alpha dudes that are literally jumping into fires and climbing, you know, huge buildings and stuff to save people. Yeah. And then just lots of downtime in between. It's like, dude, naturally, these people are, you got to fill the time.
yeah, there was like 50 of us assigned to a house. So you got 50 alpha males living in a garage. Like,
Yes, I know.
this is gonna get crazy.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I'd go,
Yeah.
when I was the Provy, like, you gotta, like, make sure, like, I mean, you're the house bitch a little bit, right? So you gotta, like, make the coffee, do all this shit. And I remember there was stairs going up from the apparatus floor where the rigs are, going up to the kitchen, and then just a steel door with a little window. And at the change of tours, man, you've got double the amount of people there in the kitchen just waiting on you. Just like, just like sharks in like chum infested water, right? And I would just like put my head on the door and be like, oh, here we go. I just walk in and it's just like, wow. And they just start going at you. Yeah. But it was great. It was fun. It was so much fun, bro. Yeah.
I figure, yeah. I mean, obviously, tremendous life skills and life experiences that you gain by doing that type of work in the first place. But then, of course, the thick skin you get from the other guys, that's going to help you in every other walk of life that you choose as well.
That's probably one of the biggest things I miss for sure. Yeah. It's just that camaraderie and the ball breaking. And yeah.
So let me ask you, when did you discover jiu-jitsu? Did you discover jiu-jitsu while you were in the service, while you were a cop, while you were a firefighter? Was it after all that?
In the Air Force when I was active duty. Yeah. So I was just big into working out and stuff. And I mean, again, Air Force facilities are amazing. That gym was amazing that we had. So I would go lift and stuff. And then I saw they had like a boxing team. So I started getting into the boxing and stuff like that. I had a couple boxing matches, nothing too great. I wasn't amazing at it or anything. And then I had a mutual friend. His name was Pierre Guillet, who was fighting MMA. He was also active duty Air Force. And he saw me and he was like, hey, dude, why don't you come to Philly with me? I train with these guys out of Fight Factory and we do MMA. So I'm like, man, I'll check it out. But I was like, I was like typical, like Long Island, Jersey meathead. Like, I'm just jacked, bro. Like, I'm going to throw hands. They're not going to do anything to me. And his little 14-year-old scrawny, or maybe he wasn't 14, he might have been a little older, but he was a scrawny little kid. And he beat the shit out of me. And I was like, what? So, it goes two ways. Like, that happens to people, and they're like, I don't ever want to do this again. But me, I was like, I need that power. So, yeah. So I started training with those guys in Philly. A dude named Steve Haig. He was running it out of, like, his grandmother's basement. And then it ended up going into a kickboxing Muay Thai gym in Philly, like in actually Philadelphia. So, yeah. And then, honestly, it's kind of crazy because Eddie Alvarez probably maybe 4 months after I started, walked in the door. And this is before he became Eddie Alvarez. He was just a brand new guy training. So I got to train with him. I got to train with a lot of guys that like made it. Like even those guys from Sarah's and stuff, like Matt was in the UFC, but I don't think Al was in the UFC when I was sparring with him. Drago Pete Sells was in the UFC. But a lot of the guys, like I was actually kind of there when they were still coming up. So it was kind of cool to see them make it, It also made me feel better too. I was like, yeah, that guy used to beat my ass. I'm like, well, he's in the UFC. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's kind of like when you lose in a tournament, but then the guy that beat you wins gold. You're like, all right, fine. All right, I feel better. I can
it's like,
go home with my dignity.
I can handle that. Yeah. Like I remember when Al first came in, like I think I was training for a fight and he came in with Costas Philippou. I don't know if you remember him.
Oh yeah, dude. Of course.
He had really good hands. Yeah. He brought him in and Ray was like, hey, he's like Bodini, because he used to call me Bodini. He's like, get around with this guy. So I did a round and dude, he dropped me with a spinning back kick to my liver. And I was like, what the hell, bro? And then it kind of kills you because like I was getting ready for a fight and this dude just walks in and I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be good. And then he just drops me. And I was like, this sucks. But yeah, but he was amazing. He's really good sparring partner and just really good fighter too. So.
Yeah, man, it's so valuable to have striking experience too. Even if you're just willing to have some for self-defense. Like I think that not only having the skills, but also understanding what it feels like to get hit, like you just described. That's a valuable experience.
Yeah. That's kind of why I ended up back at Paul Crichton's, because they do the MMA too. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know Ryan Aiken.
Of course,
from 10th Planet. Yeah. So Ryan and I started at the same gym many years ago. He was like just out of high school. And he had an MMA fight, I guess a few years after he started training, and I was part of the camp that was with him preparing him. And he's such a tall dude. These shin pads he had on only went up to like halfway up his shin, because it was like all we had left was like a small. It wasn't really like an MMA gym. It was more of like a self-defense jiu-jitsu school where we both started. And so we're doing some sparring. He throws a leg kick, and the exposed shin hit me in the. That was like the first time I'd ever really eaten like a leg kick. Bro, I thought I was
Yeah.
gonna vomit. I thought I was gonna vomit. It hurt so bad. And yeah, and so I mean, like having the experience of getting hit by someone is I think a very valuable
Yeah,
thing.
I can't even imagine doing MMA with Ryan. I've gotten to do the gi and no gi with him, and that's torture. But like that'd be even worse, I'm sure. Yeah,
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 it was around that time when he got to like his blue belt that I couldn't do anything to him anymore. And we were both blue belts at the time. Like I was
right.
like getting closer to purple and he was just getting his blue. But as he just got his blue, like at that point, I really couldn't do anything to him anymore. I was like, man, this kid's gonna be a problem. So, and that
Yeah,
ended up being true. But man, you mentioned how back in the day when you first started, you were a bit of on the Jersey, Long Island kind of meathead vibe, and a
yep.
smaller person beat you, dude. I think that's a really valuable thing that people go through in jiu-jitsu when you first start and you think you can fight.
Yeah, for me, it got me hooked. I mean, I was a fan of the UFC. Again, I'm kind of older, man. I'm going on 45, so I watched it from UFC one. You know, when Hoist had the gi on and all that, and I was just like, this is kind of cool. This is crazy. But even seeing that, you know, being, you know, 18, 19, 20-year-old dude from Long Island, I was still like, yeah, it wouldn't work on me, you know. And then, yeah, having that kid beat me up, I mean, it can make or break you, right? So for me, it was like, I got to learn that. I mean, it's a superpower, right? I got to learn that. But I think a lot of people it breaks them too, you know, where they just make excuses like, I was just being nice or whatever, and they never come back. Yeah. So it can be either way. But for me, for sure, yeah, it definitely was like, okay, that's what I need to do. I almost like, I stopped working out. Like, I like lifting weights heavy. All I cared about was my bench back then. Like, yo, what are you benching, bro? You know, now I'm like, yeah, I don't need to do that stuff anymore. So,
Yeah, that's pretty much how it went for me too. I don't know if you knew Mary Ellen Kano. Did you know Mary Ellen? Were you in
mm-mm,
Georgia at that? Oh,
no.
okay. Well, so there's the first class I ever did, the first role I ever did was with this girl. She was 130 pounds and she was a purple belt. And then when I first came into jiu-jitsu, I was like 210 pounds. And she took my back over and over again, choked me over, and she's like fighting a squirrel. Like she was just all over me. And that's what sold me on jujitsu is because this 130-pound girl like wrecked me. Now, granted, she ended up being like the Georgia MMA fighter of the year, female Georgia MMA fighter of the year, like 3 years in a row. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like a soccer mom beat me up. So I felt better about that. But that is what sold me. Like when I realized that, like, man, this 130-pound chick just she choked me over and over again. There's nothing I could do about it. I got to
Yeah.
sign up. That's what got me to
Yeah.
sign
Yeah.
up.
No, I forgot. I wanted to correct myself. I didn't completely stop lifting weights because I remember having someone when I was having my MMA fights, like Steve Haywood. He used to call me like, "Bro, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm doing buys and tries," and he's like, "Stop lifting, dude." He's like, "It's gonna hurt your striking," because I still had that like I need big arms, you know, kind of mindset. So I used to get yelled at all the time, like in those early fight camps when I was fighting for those guys. You'd always call me like, "Bro, stop lifting weights," and I'm like, "All right, all right, all right," you know. But it's hard when you're on the Jersey Shore. I was stationed by the Jersey Shore. You know, it's like, what are you gonna do? You're not gonna lift weights and tan, like, yeah. So you had to do it, yeah. But I grew out of
That's
that. I
awesome.
grew out of that.
What was it like training with Matt Serra? What was it like in his group? Because I know you said you started in Philly with Fight Factory, but then eventually you
Yep.
ended up in with Matt Serra. How did that all turn out?
Yeah, I didn't even know if I was gonna still train. Like, you know, I never like leaving a gym. Like, so when I left Fight Factory, I was just kind of like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And I remember Steve was like, dude, Matt Serra's on Long Island. So I looked him up and I showed up and yeah, sure enough, like I think him and his brother Nick were like literally training and I was kind of like starstruck, you know? Like I don't get starstruck about like movie actors and stuff like that, but like if I'm into something and I see like I guess we could say a celebrity, I'm like, whoa, I get all like starstruck. So yeah, he was there. It was his East Meadow gym. So I wouldn't say like I'm like the oldest old school guy there because I think they started in they called it like the barn. So I wasn't at the barn. But I was at his East Meadow gym, which was reminds me very much of Iron Horse right now. So and it was just, you know, a bunch of white belts. Really, he had a purple belt there. We called him Evil Benny. That guy was a monster. He was the first guy to like choke me out. I thought I was like passing his guard. Turned out I was in a loop choke, and I like woke up, and I'm like, wait, did I pass your guard? He's like, nah, dude, I loop choked you. Um, and yeah, man. So I came in and, you know, Matt, I remember the conversation too. Matt was like, hey, where you coming from? I told him I had like 3 MMA fights. And he was like, you want to fight with us? And I was like, yeah, it'd be cool to do that. And then he's like, cool. You know, the way we do it here is you're going to put on a gi and a white belt. And when you get to purple, you know, then we'll talk about having a MMA fight. And that was just his kind of, his rule then, I don't know what it is now, or I'm sure there was some exceptions, obviously, like a guy like Al who had like wrestling experience and all that stuff, right? Um, so yeah, I just kind of did my police and fire job and showed up exhausted because those hours and all that stuff gets crazy, and just trained, got to my purple belt, and then I started training at Ray Longo's, and that's how I got mixed in like fight camps and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool. Like, I'm basically a hobbyist, right? Like I love training with top competitors. So, I don't know what it was. Maybe I was just a good punching bag. Maybe I had some skill, but they'd call me up. Hey, Matt has a fight coming up. Why don't you come out to Huntington? So I drive out to Huntington, which is way out on the islands for me. And, for like his GSP fight camp and stuff like that, I was in that. I just get to mix it in, just doing rounds with them and stuff. So yeah, it's super cool. It was awesome. On top of the jiu-jitsu, everyone thinks that Matt is just a UFC fighter, but his jiu-jitsu is amazing too. So, yeah, getting a roll with him. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. If you, for the people listening, if you've never seen Matt Serra's ADCC performances back in the day, Jesus, he was one of the best grapplers of all time. So he definitely does not get enough credit for his jiu-jitsu for sure.
It's kind of like your coach, Damien, like they're like solid jiu-jitsu dudes in MMA. Cause sometimes it's like they lack on the ground game sometimes, but like Matt, he gets looked at as a UFC fighter, but his jiu-jitsu is amazing too,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let me ask you, how did you end up going from New York down to Atlanta? Because that's where you and I eventually met. How'd the move south happen?
Yeah. So I took a leave of absence from the FDNY to go do the training for TACP. I think they moved to Texas now, but at the time they were Herbert Field Air Force Base in Fort Walton Beach by like Destin, Gulf Coast area in Florida. And Eglin, they use Eglin as well. So it's about the training was about a year. I think I was down there 4 or 5 months. I don't really remember. But in the process, like I stopped in Alpharetta, like on a holiday. I had like my grandmother lives here and stuff. So I stopped by and I was like, what is this place? This Alpharetta place? Like, it's beautiful. And then I started looking at prices of houses and I'm like, dude, this is like a third of what it costs in New York.
Yeah.
So like I found it because I was down there training and I just happened to like take a break. They gave us like for Thanksgiving, they gave us like that 3-day weekend or whatever. So I just drove I think it's like 6 hours up to Alpharetta from Fort Walton Beach. And then when I retired from the FDNY, I was just like, the schools we were in, my daughter was about to go to school. Like they were bad. They were like gangs and stuff. And I just could not afford New York anymore.
Yeah.
So we were like, hey, why don't we check out Alpharetta? And that was the first time my wife saw it when we came back and started looking at houses. And house shopping on Long Island versus house shopping in Alpharetta, 14 years ago, because Alpharetta got super expensive now, was like, wow, wait, I can afford that? And the schools, everything was great. Everything's good. The weather is great. Well, the weather's warm. I have a weather story I could tell you, but yeah, definitely, it was a home run. So it's been great. My kids are doing great. My daughter's just signed to play D1 soccer in Charlotte. Like everything's going awesome for them. So I think it was a great move. But yeah, that's how I found it here. Yeah.
That's so cool, man. Yeah. Huge difference between like New York City or Long Island. And then like where Tony lives out in Alpharetta, it's like a big equestrian kind of area. So there's like people on horseback all the time. So that must've been a pretty shock, kind of a little bit of culture shock for you when you first got here.
It's a culture shock, dude. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not familiar with animals. And one day I happen to have a house that's kind of set back in the woods and there are like horse farms literally across the street from me. And, I'm pulling in one day, dude. And there's like a bronco, like a horse. I don't know what it is. Bronco style. I don't know horses in the street. And like, I'm like, what is this? This is a horse just sitting in the street. So I like just stop in my driveway and I'm watching what happens. And this woman comes out of like, basically like a dually, like those big ass trucks. I'm like, I was like, dude, she's more of a man than me. Like she comes out cowboy boots and no shit. She pulled out a lasso and she's like swinging the lasso. And I swear to God, she goes, yo, I'm like, lasso's the horse in front of like traffic. And I'm like, what is
this? Is like right when you arrive.
Right.
It's like the first, one of the first things you see.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I'll be honest. I didn't know. It's changed completely. Like Alpharetta is a huge city. Like there's so many restaurants and shops and bars and just, you don't even need to leave. But when I first moved here, I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work, because it
It
wasn't
was
that
pretty
built up.
country.
It was still
Yeah.
built up, but it was more country, yeah. And that was another moment where I was like, I don't know, dude. The horses just running around the street, like
Yeah.
I don't know if this is for me, but yeah. But no, it
Yeah.
worked
No.
out. Yeah, it worked out.
Yeah, that whole area has grown a ton, man. I remember when it was almost nothing out there. That was like in the middle of the sticks, and
Yeah,
I imagine
yeah,
going from the city to the sticks would be cool at first, but then kind of
yeah.
weird afterwards. So
I mean, I feel
yeah,
like it might be maybe one of the number one suburbs in Atlanta to move to now. It seems like everybody's moving here. Yeah,
yeah. Well, there's a
population
ton.
exploded. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a ton of jujitsu out there too. There's
Yep.
Diego Saraiva, Jukao just opened a spot up there.
Yep. Yep.
The Asunsao brothers. There's on that
Yeah.
whole street. There's like a whole
There's like
bunch of jujitsu.
eight gyms around each other now. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. And that's so funny because I remember back in the day, like when I first started training jujitsu, it was around my first class was in like late 2006. There was like 3 spots, man. It was the place I started. There was Alliance down in Atlanta, when Jacare was at the Prada. And then there was one other school that was further out, and that was pretty much it. So you had to kind of travel a little bit. Now, even just like in Alpharetta, where you are in the suburbs, there's like you said, there's like 8 schools like on the same, like within 10 miles.
Yeah,
of each
same
other.
road as us. Same road as
Yeah.
Iron Horse. There's like eight gyms there. Yeah,
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy
Yeah.
how much it's grown. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you and I eventually became friends when we both ended up at Creighton MMA, and it's kind of funny because you and I trained together we trained at Alliance during the same time period for a few years. It's just I think you trained in the mornings and I trained in the evenings, so we never met there. But we eventually became friends when we both ended up moving up to Paul Creighton, to Henzo Gracie Atlanta with Paul Creighton. And man, I always credit you for helping me develop my guard passing as a purple belt, because I was really stuck in that facet of my game. And now in your own training, you split a lot of time between our instructor Paul Creighton and also 10th Planet Atlanta with our friend Sean Applegate. How does having an equal balance between 10th Planet style jiu-jitsu and the more traditional, I guess, Henzo Gracie style at Paul's, how do you feel that's helped to complement your game, having a mix of both?
I just kind of I used it as again, I like training with competitors, so there's a lot of competitors at 10th Planet. Paul has a lot of solid competitors as well. So yeah, I mean, I spent 6 years at Alliance, and how Jacare was doing it, he would bringing in instructors, right? So I got to Alliance in between Cobrinha and Lucas Lepre is when I first got there. And I was training in the lunch class, and then I ended up moving in the morning. So I did about 4 years under Jacare and Lucas, and I think 2 years under Leo Noguera. And that's where I was like, I wanted to get more with the no-gi, more with the striking. And I went over to Paul's. And Paul's runs very much like Matt Serra's, with all the different guys that I got to train with. I've been lucky enough to train with, like, probably 16 years of my jiu-jitsu background has been like Henzo lineage, right? So Paul's felt very familiar to me, and the level of no-gi there was great. Sean moved in maybe a year after I was at Paul's, and Paul's gym is about an hour and a half from me, and Sean's is like 30 minutes. So I found myself cross-training at Sean's and Paul's, like doing both at the same time. I wouldn't say they were that much different, because I feel like a lot of people look at 10th Planet as just like rubber guard and stuff like that. And it's not. I mean, if you see the guys out of 10th Planet, it's very much, DDS style stuff, right? I'm not saying it's the same, but it's not like rubber guard and all this other crazy stuff. So it wasn't too much different. It was just more no-gi for me. I took the gi off for, man, probably 5 or 6 years and just focused on no-gi. So I just did, split my time between the two of them.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's really cool. It's something else that's happened since you were at Creighton is you opened up your own school, man. I would really like to zoom on that if you don't mind, because there's a lot of people listening right now that probably dream of having their own school one day. And dude, it's been super cool watching you start your team by rolling out mats in a rec center, and then before you grew it into the physical location that you have now. I'm always like really happy to see the videos and pictures of your mats packed with students, dude. It's been a really cool thing to watch. What do you think are some of the things about school ownership that surprised you? And what do you think are some things that really helped you with your school's growth?
Yeah. So as far as the growth goes, I mean, I got to credit Paul Creighton for that, because he's, not only on the mats, my coach, but like he's helped me with that tremendously. Like I could not have done any of this or even had the courage to do it, really. So I kind of used a lot of his guidance. So yeah, I mean, what's one of the things that surprised me? I guess being on the business end of things now, like, you always hear about that 99.9% that don't make it to black belt. So that attrition rate, like,
Yeah.
you never really realized it because you kind of had your friends when you're coming up through the ranks. And I mean, you probably stick with like-minded people. So they're probably still around, where the ones that you weren't really cool with probably quit. So you didn't notice it. But for sure, when you start running the business end, it's like, wow, man, like not many people can do this. This is crazy. So that I learned for sure. The business side, dude, I used to run into burning buildings and blow things up. Like, you get me? But Alec makes fun of me because usually on Thursdays, like I don't teach. I'll do like the wrestling class, and then our coach Jeremiah will run the gi class, and Alec will be like, "Yo, admin Tony," and I'll just be behind the desk, like trying to just jamming
With
on
your
buttons
fingers,
like a second grader. So doing all the administrative stuff, I never thought I'd be doing that. Even this right here, like, hey bro, copy this link and put it in. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What am I doing? I gotta call a buddy. How do I do this?
I almost had to send you a step-by-step video.
Yeah, dude. I'm like, I feel so old when it comes to like technology. I feel like that typical like stereotype, like middle-aged dude, like just I don't know what to do. Give my phone to my kids, like how do I do this? So yeah, the administrative stuff, the attrition rate, the multiple like personalities you got to deal with, depending on how many students. If you have 100, 200, 300 students, you're dealing with 200-300 people that all want different things and kind of want you to do what they want, and you got to kind of draw the line on things, so kind of put your foot down on things, so yeah, that kind of stuff was definitely something I was new to. Yeah.
Well, I think something you've done really well, man, is you've found a good team of people to join you in the journey of building the school out and running it properly. You have like Alec Balding, we mentioned, Jeff Cummings, a good buddy of ours. You've got really great people that you surround yourself with. And that's something I think a lot of people that start any business really might struggle with too, is delegating and recognizing, hey, I need someone to help me with this particular aspect. And, you don't want to give up control because it's your baby. It's this thing you're trying to grow, and it's hard to let go of responsibilities sometimes. But I think you've done a really good job of selecting a good group of people around you. That's probably been pretty helpful.
Yeah, I've been pretty lucky with that, man, because again, I got a purple belt, Dustin, who teaches, Jeremiah, who teaches, Alec and Jeff are there. We always pick their brains. They jump in, help people out. Just finding people that you can trust. Like if, my daughter plays soccer, right? So sometimes I got to travel, and I don't worry about anything with those guys. I'm just like, hey guys, Saturday, can you cover? Yep, cool. And if my phone rings, then I'm like, uh-oh, there's a problem. But I'm never like, hey, you all right? Everything good? 100% trust out of those guys. So that's definitely hard to do, hard to find.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, another mistake I see school owners make over the years is trying to expand or jump into a spot that's too big for them in the beginning. And I appreciated the way that you started. You literally, I remember, rolled out mats at a rec center. And you'd have like people coming in, and I think they just pay like a drop in to train with you and stuff. And you eventually built up a team to where you had enough people where you could go and move into a physical location. Yep. And it reminded me a lot of Paul Creighton. Speaking of Paul, I remember when I first met Paul like years ago when I was like a white belt still. He was in this really a pretty small place compared to where he's at now, but it was packed to the seams. Like I think he had to use, if I remember correctly, he used to have like a rotation of Group A and Group B to train. So there was like a limit to how many people could be in each class because the walls just you couldn't fit more people. And he maintained that for a long time, like for a lot longer than he really needed to, I guess. But then when he moved into this gigantic location he's in now, it gave him the security of knowing, man, I for sure have, enough people to cover the costs of this. And now I think he's talking about expanding even the big place he has now. So my point with this is I think it's great that you started small and grew slowly and smart rather than, jumping on a lease on a huge place and hoping you can fill it up. But by the time the bills are due,
Yeah. And that's all guidance I got from Paul. So we started out in the rec, like you said, rolling out mats. I mean, I was working construction and then roll out a mat, and sometimes no one showed up, and it's like, just kind of cry to yourself. Like, what am I doing with my life? Roll the mats back up, do it again tomorrow, and I think we're, if you count those days, we're probably like 5 years in right now. 2 years at our actually gym location, but 5 years from that rec center. So yeah. And then I'm doing a lot of the same things that Paul did too, because, and even Matt Serra, I remember at, East Meadow when it was just packed, like doing stuff like King of the Hill, having groups of 3. Like for sure, Monday night's probably our busiest night. We got like 1,000 square feet of mats, and I mean, there's nights where there's 30, 40 people in there. So yeah, we have to improvise, keep adding to the schedule, keep trying to dissipate that crowd. I tell them all the time, like this past Monday, I was like, hey guys, we got other classes in the week, not just Monday. Like you guys can show up other days too. So, but Monday, I don't know what it is. I guess the weekend's up. It's like everybody shows up on
chomping
Monday.
to get in. Yeah. Monday's a big training day. That's a big one for me too. Because during the weekend, I just kind of, I'm away from jiu-jitsu completely during the weekend. So by the time Monday hits, it's like, I got to get in there, get my fix. Let me ask you this, man. Talk to me about jiu-jitsu politics. Cause that's, you mentioned that on the road that you're on, there's obviously like 8 academies. And I know back in the day, there used to be much more rigid sort of, not rules, but like there were unwritten kind of understandings between schools. Like, okay, if one guy's here, you open a gym at least 20 miles away before, you wouldn't open in the same area. Now, because of the growth of jiu-jitsu, that's just impossible. Like that especially if you're in a bigger city. It's really just impossible to stay 20 miles from someone. What kind of jiu-jitsu politics have you run into once you opened your school that you can recall?
Yeah, I think, I guess I'm kind of low key. So I'm fortunate I don't have to deal with much of it. Like, and also I think because I'm not affiliated like 10th Planet or Henzo or Alliance, I'm just Iron Horse. So like, I think that maybe is what keeps me out of it. Also like, we have some competitors, but I don't currently actively compete. So maybe that keeps me out of it as well. I think it really, in my opinion, like, yeah, that made sense. But nowadays, especially like Alpharetta, where it is just slammed, like with people, I mean, I think there's just so many people here that I think you can have multiple gyms, and each gym is different. Like my gym is run different than the other 7 or whatever gyms are in the area. And people are just going to land where they want to be. So, I mean, if you're a student looking for a gym, definitely try out a class, just because whatever, everyone's like, hey, Iron Horse is the best. You may come in and not like what I'm doing and like what the guy down the street's doing, or vice versa. And there's enough people, especially in Alpharetta, for that to work. If it's like a rural area and you do that, maybe not, but like, I mean, this place is pretty crowded now, Alpharetta. I'm always driving around and it's like, dude, I'm back on Long Island now. It's like traffic everywhere. And then just being, I mean, for me, I run your gym's going to run like, how the head instructor is and how the owner is, because like I said, I like to train with competitors and train almost competitively, even though I'm not actively competing. And our gym, Alpharetta, is a lot of like, corporate executives, a lot of hobbyists. These guys are not a lot of them are like, oh, I want to drop everything and be a full-time jiu-jitsu fighter, so we have a hobbyist gym for the most part with high-level competitors as well. We have Alec and Jeff there, right? And that's how I always like to train. Even though I didn't compete at a high level, I trained at a pretty high level. I was always at Alliance training with those killers, Paul's, 10th Planet, Matt Serra's. So I run the gym that way, right? So if you come in and you're a hobbyist, like you're still going to learn the current meta of stuff going on. You're not going to just learn 1998 jiu-jitsu. Not that that's bad, but I feel like a lot of hobbyist schools, that's all they do. And I don't do that. Like I'm studying like all the current guys out there, what they're doing, being when I was at 10th Planet with Brian Aikens competing at the highest level. So whatever he's learning, like I want to learn that too, Same thing at Paul's. You got killers like, Chris Jones and Logan and T, and, no one knows Noah. That guy's a killer. So what are they doing? Justin Parsons, all those guys, like he's like a hidden gem too. So like, what are they doing? I don't want to just show you like closed guard arm bars for 10 years. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's how we run. Long story, right? That's how we run our gym. If it works for you, they're going to come to me. If it doesn't work, they're going to go to somebody else, and I don't know what they're doing, but it's not my business. But if they like it there, go there. So
that's awesome. Well, dude, I think what you just said such a valuable thing for a school owner and for a teacher is to keep a finger on the pulse of what's going on in grappling and what trends are happening, and to not be, surprised by something that is becoming a big facet of jiu-jitsu that you've completely ignored. I think it's very good that you do that. And I was actually just talking the other day with our mutual friend, Graham Gardner from Creighton. And we were talking about how anytime there's some new cutting edge thing, or if you want to hear what's new in jiu-jitsu, we call you. So we're like, hey, Tony, what are people doing? Or what's the thing right now? What do you think is going to be the next wave that's important to be aware of? And yeah, I think it's phenomenal that you do that, because some people really do. They kind of find what they're comfortable with, or they find their game, which as a student is totally fine. If you have your game as a practitioner, but if your job is to be teaching, man, you want to be able to have all the knowledge that you can to share it with the people that it's going to apply to, because not everyone's going to be a cookie cutter of your exact game, because they might have a different body type or personality type. So I think it's valuable that you do that.
The cool thing is too, like, again, like you talked about the other guys that I have instructing and helping out, like, I'm an honest person. If someone asks me, I don't play half guard. If someone's like, hey, Tony, like, what do I do? How do I do this in half guard? Like, I'm like, I can give you an answer, but that's not my game. That's Jer's game. Go ask Jer. He's better at that. Like, I'm totally fine with doing that. I don't sit around trying to claim I'm the best at everything and know everything. Like, I definitely am not. So I'll use my resources too, you know. I mean, obviously having Alec there is a huge resource. That guy competes at the highest level. So if I don't have an answer, hey man, Alec, what do you do with this? How do you deal with that? You know? So yeah, using your resources too, you know, I think that's definitely important.
Yeah. And that takes us back to like a good benefit of just training in places where there's top level people. I mean, my time that I spent at Creighton and at Alliance, I mean, those were all really, really formative, important years for me, because I got to rub elbows with all different kinds. In fact, you mentioned you got to Alliance as Cabrinha was leaving and Lucas Lepre was coming in. I was there as Cabrinha had already left, so I never got to train with him, unfortunately. But I was there during Lucas Lepre teaching a lot of the classes throughout the week. And man, getting to train with him and Jeff and Alec and all those guys, it was super helpful. And I imagine that there are schools out there where if you're staying in a place where there's just not a lot of high level competitors, you're not getting those same insights. So I think that's cool that you emphasized, you know, the benefit of being around and actively seeking like who has really high level guys that I can go train with.
Yeah. Well, that was part of the reason, one of the things I looked at when I moved here. Like, yeah, when I came by, I was like, it's really nice here. Schools are great. It'd be great for my kids. But what's the jiu-jitsu scene like? Because if it's not, you know, I'm not going there. So yeah, it was good. And it's getting better and better. It's getting crazy. It's becoming a hot spot for sure. Yeah.
Dude, Atlanta's scene is already like incredible, man. And a lot of people, I feel like Atlanta was a real sleeper city in the world of jiu-jitsu, because you know, a lot of the attention was always given to like the schools on the West Coast and in New York and things like that. And of course, in Brazil, like in the late 90s and early 2000s and stuff, mid 2000s, you'd think of, you know, Los Angeles, New York City, Rio de Janeiro, or Sao Paulo, right? You think Brazil. Nowadays, I mean, Jacare opened in Atlanta. He was the first one there. And started, you know, building a tremendous team that ended up being like, you know, the most winning competition team in the world for like 10 or 11 years straight. And I feel like Atlanta never really quite got the emphasis and attention that it deserved. But nowadays, man, with Sean Applegate opening up there, and man, Bruno Frazado, and there's oh my God, the Jucaos there. It's of course Paul Creighton, who I feel doesn't get enough credit.
No, he doesn't.
Paul is one of the best kept secrets in jiu-jitsu. He's one of the best instructors I've ever had in my life, an incredible mentor. And he's not a big self promoter. He's a very humble kind of just
I get it, man. I'm kind of that way too. Like one of my buddies makes fun of me. He's just like, I don't know, dude. I don't like the spotlight. He's like, it's kind of hard to grow a business doing that. I'm like, I know. So it's kind of hard. It's a double-edged sword. It's like this is terrifying for me, you know, getting on camera and instructionals. I'm like, oh my God, talking. Alec pushes me out of that box for sure. He's always like, Tony, film something. Tony, come here, Tony. I'm always on his stuff, you know. So yeah, I definitely can resonate with that with Paul. I get it. I'm like, just kind of like stay in the shadows and do my thing, man.
It's fun. That's why I was talking to you about doing this, because I really wanted to give you some spotlights. I feel the same way about you and like Justin Parsons. Like there's a bunch of guys in Paul's network that are not big, like self-promoted spotlight type people, but man, like the people that know, you know. And you mentioned Alec. I love that Alec is pushing you to do more. Alec's become a content machine, man. So it's great having people like that around you that kind of already know how to film content. What has it been like learning how to do that? Like obviously you've started filming some moves, and now you just did your first instructional with us at Fanatics. What's that experience been like?
The instructional or just what?
Everything. Like, being on camera and building up your Instagram. It's
terrifying, man. It's terrifying. Because you know, it's like,
dude, you used to jump into burning buildings, bro. You used to jump into a burning building. You used to chase crackheads through the subways in New York. Like, man, you were in war zones, and filming you on camera. That's what freaks you out.
Yeah. It's such a permanent thing. It's just like it's there forever. Like I don't know, dude. I look at like, I mean, you think about who you got on BJJ Fanatics. And I was like, man, I'm gonna be on there too. Like that's crazy. Like you got, Gordon. Did you ever have Matt Serra on here? I don't
Yeah,
know.
Matt Serra.
Oh,
Matt
okay,
Serra
so
was my
Matt,
Matt Serra was my third interview I ever did way back in the
that's
day.
crazy.
Yeah, when it was
So
a
it's like you
Grappling
just think
Central
about all these
podcast.
guys you got on here, and like, man, like Jason Rao is another old teammate of mine. Like think about all these guys that are on here, and it's like, hey Tony, you want to do this too? And I'm like, me? Like what?
Dude, you're
Okay.
the man. You're the man, bro. No, I'm stoked to have you here because
Yeah.
like I said, there's a lot of people in jiu-jitsu that you don't know about just because they're not super like extroverted, like content creating,
Hmm.
influencer type people that have tremendous experience and knowledge. And so I always try to find those people too and give them focus because it's important, man.
It's kind of cool for me. I'm starting to see some of the, I guess, like hidden gems that you're talking about. Like I'm starting to see them pop out now, and I'm like, good man, that guy deserves it. Like again, like Jason Rao, like he was a white belt when I was at Matt Serra's, and then I think I was a brown belt when I left Mass. He might have been a purple, but when I left, I was like, dude, this guy, he's gonna be a terror. And then I would train with him when I go back to New York. I did some like online privates with him, and then all of a sudden, like everybody's talking about him. Like, good, like hell yeah, that dude needs that, right? Another guy I could think of too is like John Thomas, like
Oh
Marker
yeah,
Howe.
dude. Oh
Dude,
man.
like he
Yeah.
helped me out so much when I was at Alliance, and I'm like, that's part of the reason why I started doing mornings, because he was teaching mornings before I taught the mornings, and it was like, man, this is like a mini private lesson with this guy. So I was like, I'm just gonna go to the morning classes and train with John, And now you see he's all over YouTube, and he's got instructional. So that's awesome. I love seeing that because those guys deserve it for sure. Those guys were amazing. Helped me out tremendously too. So I mean, everybody knows Alec, I think, but if not, like he's another one that's breaking
Alec
out on
Balding.
social
Yep.
media. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember when John Thomas took over. So when Lucas Lepre left to open his school in Charlotte, John Thomas kind of took his spot. And it's funny because I had known John just kind of in passing, but then I never learned from him. So when he started teaching, I was like, dude, man, this guy's a seriously good instructor. So I used to my brother and I actually did privates with him, and he was outstanding, dude. So yeah, I love finding these because I think a lot of knowledge that exists out there, sometimes it's not always like at the most, obvious place. Sometimes there's people that are just a little more reserved, a little more quiet that have tremendous amounts of knowledge. And if you can just tap into it, you can learn a lot. So
yeah, for sure.
Well, man, speaking of learning more about you, Tony, there's a game I play with every guest halfway through the show. It's called the Pummel. It's a series of random questions. Some of these are about jiu-jitsu. Some of them have nothing to do with jiu-jitsu, but if you're down to play the Pummel, I'd love to play this game with you to get to know, so the audience can get to know you better.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it, man. I'm going to start with the most scrutinized question that I ask people. This is either going to get you a lot of love or a lot of hate, depending on your answer.
Okay.
What's the largest animal you think you could beat in hand-to-hand combat?
Ooh, that's a little different, man. Most people are like, could you take a grizzly or a shark?
Right.
You're just asking general,
Yeah. And see, if you said grizzly or shark, there'd be 100 emails I'd get saying, dude, that guy's so full of shit. He'd never, and they're sending me like animal fact statistics from, imright.com. Yeah.
That one I thought about a lot if I had an answer for that. So, all right, I got to think about this. So I definitely probably nothing too big. And I kind of like animals, but, man, it's not like I live in the woods, so I got like these freaking roof rats that crawl onto my roof, and I got all these like little annoying rodents tearing up my yard. So I would love to kill them. That'd be great. But if I had to go biggest, like, I mean, probably like a cat, dude. I'm not killing anything.
House cat,
dude. I'm not. Yeah, and even
house
then,
cat's acceptable.
They're killers, so he might even kill me. I don't know.
They might, like, dude. They're lower to the ground. They might get your groin, bro. That's a bad thing. Have a cat attached to your groin. That's bad.
Sneaky. They're sneaky, but so yeah, I mean, yeah, probably just some type of rodent, dude. Rodent or a cat. Which kind of like the cat kills the rodent, so maybe I don't kill the cat. Just kill
unless it's a New York rodent. In that case, they could probably kill the cat.
As big as a cat. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I saw a rat on Canal Street in Chinatown in like 2017.
Yeah, I used to work on the train there. Yeah,
bro, I could not believe how, like I literally thought it was a cat. I was like, dude, what is that? Like a muskrat or something? My friend's like, no, it's a fucking rat. I'm like, no, it's not. And it's like this like jacked like you talk about the Jersey Shore dudes like the jack. It was like it was like a Jersey Shore rat, man. He had traps and everything. I was like, dude, what the fuck is that,
dude? Yeah. I had this squirrel when we used to live in New York. My house in New York, like everything in New York is just harder, bro. Like the squirrel had one eye. He just had one eye. Like I think he got in a fight and the eye got taken out. And he would just sit in my driveway when I'm trying to park, like looking at me with one eye, like, what, bitch? Like, you trying to take my spot? Like,
he had like a neck tattoo.
I don't think I could kill that thing. That thing survived a fight already. Like, I don't think I can kill that squirrel. But yeah, I can kill the rodents. I can kill the rodents around here for sure. Yeah.
No, they're not ready for you. Definitely. No. I think that's an acceptable answer. I think most of the listeners, even the ones that are real hard on people that answer that question grandiosely,
they're gonna think that's pretty pathetic.
No, they'll think it's reasonable. It's whenever someone goes too much that people are like, dude, that guy has no idea the strength of a grizzly bear or the strength of an ape. If you could have, let's see, if you found a genie lamp and normal genie rules apply, so no wishing for more wishes and no killing people, what would your 3 wishes be?
I mean, man, 3 wishes. Okay, so I'm just gonna go with superpowers, bro. I'm gonna go, I think the ultimate superpower is, to control time, right?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, flying's pretty cool. I'll go with flying. And then just being invisible. I'll go with those 3. Those are pretty sick. If I can do those 3, I'd probably be better at jiu-jitsu too.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of are you past my guard? Just freeze time.
Just freeze time, take the back.
Nah, dude, I got your back.
This dude's unbelievably fast, bro. How's he doing?
How is he so good?
What do you think have you ever had a supernatural experience?
Yeah, man. So yeah, when I was active duty Air Force security forces, we'd work. Yeah, I worked overnight, so I was working on a flight line, just guarding, securing the flight line, the planes and resources. And there's this one area called Kilo 1. And I don't know, I don't know if I believe in ghosts or not, but for sure, when you're up that long, like you start seeing things. So it's like, I don't know, but I was in this old truck, like a Chevy S10, no radio, big side view mirrors, and I swear in the side view, the driver's side mirror, I see like a shadow of a figure run behind the truck, and I hear like a thump on the back of the truck, and I'm like, what? So like, I just put it in drive and like floor it and look in my mirror to see if like there's something behind me, and I'm looking in the bed and there's nothing there. So like that whole night, like I drove in a circle. Like usually you'll have a full tank of gas, and when you turn over in the morning, the change of shift is like maybe a quarter of a tank. Dude, that shit was on empty. The guy was like, yo, how'd you burn so much gas? I'm like, I don't know, bro. I was just bored driving around. I'm not going to tell him, like, I think I saw a ghost, right?
Yeah, right.
And then another night at the same area, dude, I'm like sitting there. It's just, early or late in the morning, however you want to look at it. And I swear I see like a shadow, like a figure run to the front end of an aircraft by the wheel well. And now, you do like sometimes 12-hour shifts or whatever. So they'll do things to break up time. They'll run training exercises, right? So I'm like, man, this got to be a training exercise. So I roll around. I don't see anything there. I'm like, maybe they crawled up in the wheel well. I'm like, well, for sure, they're not going to sit here for 8 more hours doing nothing. They're going to kick off an exercise if that's what it is. And they never did. So I'm like, what? So crazy thing is, maybe a year later, there's these 2 dudes that get on shift with us or whatever, and we're in like roll call or guard mount, they called it. And I was pretty cool with these dudes. So most of I was at McGuire Air Force Base or Fort Dix. Most of that area, I guess they took from the tri-state and just stationed them there. They probably figured like, yeah, they're all a bunch of Guidos or whatever. Just put them all in the same base. We'll all get along, right? So yeah, I did. I got along. One guy was from Philly. The other guy was from Brooklyn, right? So they're in there talking, and I'm like sitting on the other side of the room, and I hear him go like, yo, dude, like, why did I see this shadow guy running around Kilo 1 last night? And then the other dude's like, what? Yeah, I saw that too one day too. And I was like, listening to them talk, and I was like, wait, what'd you say? And they said what they were seeing this guy run around, and I was like, dude, I kind of saw that too, man. I don't want to say anything. You're like, what, really? And I was like, yeah. So, I don't know, dude. I don't know if it was a real thing or not, but it was definitely weird. It made it more fun. Anytime you're out
Yeah.
there, like your heart rate will be a little higher. Like, oh no,
Yeah, for real.
this ghost thing gonna come after me tonight. Like, what's gonna go on? So
That's so
yeah,
crazy. It's crazy on a military base too, because you never know what the origin of that could be. Like I was
yeah.
watching a thing not long ago where they were talking about cloaking uniforms and devices that they're using, that they're testing rather for military use. Or like I can't remember exactly, and of course I'm an idiot. I don't know how to explain scientifically how anything works, but it was something about how they have this device or this uniform or something that I guess does something to the human eye to make it look like it's like it makes the eye not recognize what is actually there in front of it. And so it looks like
the thing with the camera. So it's like a mini cameras,
yes,
and then it prints it on the back. So
it's like a
you're looking
mirroring
through.
type thing. Yeah. And I'm really exposing what an idiot I am. But yeah, it's something like that. Yeah. And so it makes you wonder like whether or not they were testing. Hey, see if these guys that are supposed to be paying attention can actually see.
Yeah, it could.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the whole like they've announced that they're going to be releasing like UFO stuff and the JFK documents and like the Martin Luther King assassination documents? Are you a big conspiracy guy? Like, do you have any? I
mean, I'm not
stuff like that you're into?
Conspiracy guy, but I mean, as far as UFOs go, I mean, there's gotta be other life.
It has to be 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked with some people, and I'm like, that dude's definitely an alien. So people might think I'm an alien. I don't know.
Yeah, this guy wears socks with his sandals. He's definitely from fucking Mars.
Especially jujitsu, you meet some strange people.
We get some interesting folks. Yeah.
I want it to be something interesting. Like, I just don't want it to be a letdown. Like where it's like, you didn't really tell us anything. Like, tell me something. Like I want them to reveal it with like an alien. Like, pop it up with like the president, like
like have one of the dudes in Congress just like rip his face open and be like, oh, I'm Zorvac from fucking
Man in Black or something.
Yeah.
I want something like that. But I have a feeling it's gonna be whatever.
Yeah. Well, they're talking about they're talking about all these documents, and they're going to talk about like UFO stuff that they've, I guess, classified from the Air Force, but then also underwater crafts and stuff because that's another big thing. People talk more about stuff coming from the sky. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff under the water too. So it'll be interesting to see what and then of course the JFK thing. I'm like, that's always been like a very highly debated, like who was involved, what happened kind of thing. But yeah, if I'm just curious from like a military perspective, like, what your thoughts are on like all these classified things.
I think you're going to know what they want you to know, man. That's it. Yeah.
That's probably the truth.
It's going to be just enough where you're like, okay, kind of didn't tell us anything. Cool.
Just enough to keep us showing up to work and paying bills. And yeah, that's true. Tony, do you have any tattoos? And if so, what's your favorite one?
I have one. I wouldn't even say it's my favorite. It kind of dates me, dude. I got that classic tribal band from the late 90s, but I don't even hate. I get hate on it. I'm like, look, bro, like, they're all trends. Everyone's like, oh, this will never go out of style. I'm like, sure, bro. That's what I said too. Like, so whatever. Like I know like guys were getting all the koi fishes. Like that was a stample like the early 2000s. So
stars.
Whatever.
Do you remember the stars from the early 2000s? Like
everyone
got that. Or how many times have you seen the one that's it's the F from the Stars and Straps logo and says family? Like I've probably seen 100 people with that. 100 people with the family tattoo starting with that F. Yeah. But so tattoo armband, that's what you got. Have you considered getting any new ones?
Yeah, I thought about doing like a sleeve, and it's just kind of like a mural of all the things that I got to do and stuff like that. But I don't know if I'll do it or not. We'll see. I'm also getting older where it's like, I don't know, is it cool to do that now? Weird. So
that'd have been funny if you said, yeah, I'm gonna get a sleeve. It's gonna be mostly tribal themed with some stars and some family and so.
I'll get bands on every single limb. I'll just have four bands on. There you go.
Barbed wire. Yeah. That's awesome. What do you think is a secret talent that you have that people might not know about?
Secret talent. I feel like I'm pretty good at. It might be coming from New York and being a cop and all that. Like just reading people, really. Just kind of like, also like, again, maybe going back to the TACP thing, because like there's a pretty decent washout rate. And then also with jujitsu. So it's like not judging people, but I'm like, I don't know if that guy's going to make it or not,
Yeah.
It's just like, and sometimes it surprised me. I got plenty of guys that like, I didn't think that guy was going to make it. And then, oh, you made it. Cool.
Yeah. Well, look at me. It's like you're probably like, oh, this Ryan guy, he's going to flush out in 6 months for sure.
Now you're a black belt. There you go. Yeah.
What do you think is, what's something you wish you were better at? Something outside of martial arts that you wish you could do better?
Marketing. There you go.
Marketing.
Does that tie in? Does that tie into jiu-jitsu? Is that a cheat? That might've been a cheat. Never mind. Yeah. Yeah. Dude, just being a civilian is hard. It's new to me. So if I could be better at that, like figuring out how to, which I finally have, right? I finally figured out my niche now, I think. So, but yeah, just normal everyday stuff. Is that a thing? I'm just not good at that, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. Just fitting back into being normal again. Yeah.
That's how the Hells Angels formed, man. It was all veterans that came back and were kind of like, dude, this is what I'm supposed to just turn a wrench now. Like what the hell? I was blowing up Nazis 2 weeks ago, and now I'm supposed to just come back here and be a dentist. You know what I mean?
If I didn't have that, maybe I'd be in a biker gang. I don't know if I don't have.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I don't know.
Then you'd have all kinds of crazy tattoos for sure.
That's true. Yeah.
What do you think is your favorite bad food to eat?
Pizza, dude. Easy.
Pizza, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so here's I should have known that one. Here's a better question for you. Describe your perfect pizza.
Just cheese, man. Just cheese. You start loading shit on there, and it's like, it's good. It doesn't like that. That's a cheat, right? If you're like, hey, check this place out. Is this place good? Just give me cheese. Because if the base is good, if the sauce is good, and it's cooked right, it's good. You start throwing bacon and all that shit on there, like it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Like, throw bacon on something and say it's not good. It's always good, right? So if you just give me a base cheese and it's like, yeah, that's good, then yeah, it's a good place. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can put bacon on a turd and improve it.
Yeah,
so it's definitely, I think that's a good way to go. So let me ask you this. There's a few things that are considered like cardinal sins, especially for New Yorkers, especially for Italian New Yorkers, cardinal sins for pizza. Does pineapple ever belong on a pizza in your opinion?
This is a big debate, man. Yeah. So, I'm not gonna lie. I like pineapple and ham on pizza, but it's kind of like a novelty or like a dessert. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. Like, we've talked about this before. Like, if when I was growing up in New York, like we had crazy toppings on pizza, right? You get like ziti pie. You'd get like, this is a weird one I like that no one likes. It's salad pizza. They actually put salad on top of the dough, which
lettuce.
It's like a salad,
Okay.
just like a house salad on the pizza. And like Sean Applegate hates it. He's like, that's the dumbest thing ever. I'm like, bro, next time you're in New York, just try it. So if you like into like having a salad before your meal, it's like, okay, you have a 3-course meal there. You got your salad slice, you got whatever, your meatball ziti slice, and then you could throw that Hawaiian pineapple bullshit at the end for your dessert. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you got like a 3-course meal ready to go and a Coke, and you're good to go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No,
it's
dude,
okay. It's okay. Yeah.
There's a place. So I never liked pineapple on pizza until I found there's, of all things, in Atlanta. There's Jets Pizza, the chain that they have.
Yeah, there's one
there.
right by the gym. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
gym.
dude. So dude, take this recommendation. Order a large deep dish Hawaiian with bacon, and tell me what you think. They make a really good Hawaiian style deep dish pizza that I really, really like. And before that, I never liked pineapple on pizza, but that's like my only exception is that place.
So your Chicago roots are coming out, bro.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's like, the guys in New York like pizza, it's lasagna.
We like the thin stuff.
Yeah. No, I like New York style.
I'll try it.
I like any pizza is good for me, man. But I like a little bit of deep dish sometimes. But I think I prefer overall New York style. Dude, you got to come down here and visit me in Sao Paulo because, dude, Sao Paulo has they're famous for pizza down here too. So it's like the city
a lot of
itself.
Italians in
in
Brazil, right? Lucas is I think a part Italian. I think.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He is. And so Sao Paulo itself is like 40% Italian heritage. So like everyone you meet is like Mancini, Bianchini.
It's like my high school graduating class.
So it's like very, very Italian. And what came with that is good Italian food, but also really good pizza. And the pizza they make down here, it really does have kind of a Brazilian twist to it. So it's kind of like a New York style thickness as far as dough. The sauce is different. They just puree tomatoes. So it's not any kind of like thicker sauce. It's just literally pureed tomatoes. So it's a little like, they don't put a ton of sauce because otherwise it would just be a big soup because it's, pureed tomatoes. So it's a little bit of tomato sauce and then cheese, and then they load it with all different kinds of toppings. And the toppings they choose are really interesting. My favorite pizza down here, dude, this one, when I first saw this, I was like, okay, that's not a pizza. I'm not touching it. That's crazy. But now it's become my favorite thing. It's called the Portuguesa. So it's mozzarella cheese, onion, hard boiled egg, peas, and chunks of ham. And when I first saw that, I was like,
peas,
dude, come on.
That's weird.
Peas, bro.
Yeah.
I know. And sometimes they add corn. Sometimes they put pieces of corn.
Okay.
It's like one of the best pizzas I've ever had in my life. Like I really thought it looked ridiculous. You got to come down here and visit me. I'll get you a piece. It's really good. I like all pizza, man. So
yeah. Yeah, you can't go wrong. Yeah. Even the bad pizza.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've had some bad pizzas where I'm like, I want to throw it at the wall. But
yeah. Moving on. What is your least favorite food? What's something you cannot eat no matter what?
Yeah, I kind of open a lot of things, man. So like part of the training for attack Ps, you got to go through SEER school, which is like, they kind of treat you like a POW and you got to survive and stuff like that. So like, dude, I mean, I had to eat bugs and worms. I never thought I would do that. And then I was like, whatever. If they were like, hey, that's edible, like I was eating the shit out of it, dude. So it's kind of hard to say, like, I wouldn't eat anything, but I did have like a rule where I was like, I'm just not eating organs. Like it was just weird to me. But then I had to eat organs when I was in SEER school. And I was like, that's kind of good. But I was also starving. So I don't know, And then, my wife's going to hate me for this one, but like my wife's Korean, right? And like Korean food's super popular now. But when we first met, like 20 plus years ago, like I was just used to Italian food and like they eat some weird shit, man. So like I've been exposed to a lot of weird shit that I'm like, okay, it's kind of cool. First time I met my mother-in-law, she'll probably kill me for this one, but like I swore she was like Gollum from Lord of the Rings because she was just like sitting on the couch watching like a Korean soap opera and eating little dried fish. And I was like, what is that? What is she eating? But I'm sure I probably love it. It's probably like a protein-packed potato chip, but
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
yeah,
I've been exposed
healthier.
to a lot of things, so I eat a lot of things. But I did have a rule about organs. Like I was just like, I don't want to eat organs. But then I did, and I was like, that's not bad. Yeah.
Have you ever had chicken hearts?
No,
dude. Chicken hearts
is it fried or
no. They cook it in lots of different cultures, but in Brazil they do like a Brazilian barbecue, like the churrasco style. Bro, they're so good. Yeah, in fact, if you're in Atlanta, since you're in Atlanta, go to Rio de Janeiro restaurant in Marietta. It's like the best churrasco in the city, in my opinion. And ask for some chicken hearts. They're kind of chewy. A lot of it
is texture. Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of it is texture, right? If the texture is off, it's like even if it tastes good.
Yeah, but the way they season it and the way they cook it, it's actually like pretty. It's one of my favorite things. I really like chicken hearts. Okay. And then you mentioned bugs. Like, so did you have to eat like worms and grubs? Like, do you remember specifically what you ate?
Oh yeah, I ate ants and worms.
Okay.
They gave us a chicken and a rabbit because they have to teach you how to kill the animal and clean it and all that stuff. We originally dug up worms to try to fish and catch, but we didn't catch any fish. So I was like, well, fuck it, I'm just gonna eat the worms. But they weren't that bad. Again, I was starving. It just tasted like crunchy, chewy dirt. Like it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, ants and worms. And then I was tasked with so they give you a rabbit and a chicken, and you got to kind of keep it alive and keep it with you and stuff like that. And I just love to eat, and they always made fun of me for that. So like, I would like dig a hole and keep the rabbit in it, and then like just be like throwing random shit in the little cage. I mean, like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm trying to get this bitch fat, man. Like, we're gonna eat it in a couple of days. Like, they're like, I don't think rabbits eat pine cones. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just like throwing random shit. Like, eat it. And I was tasked with putting the rabbit down because there was 80 of us in SEER school, most of them pilots, and then 6 special operators, and they kept us together. And they're all from like Texas. And there's very few like New Yorkers in the military in that kind of work. So like I kind of stood out. So when it came time to like take care of business with the rabbit, they're like, "Yo, give it to the New Yorker guy." And I thought like I was gonna be like, but I was so hungry, dude. I was like, whatever, man. Yeah. I'm gonna get so banned now. All these like animal lovers. If you're look, dude, I was there. One of my buddies was a vegan, and he was like, I'm eating this rabbit, you know. So it's survival. It is what it is, you know. Yeah. So all the animal lovers, I'm sorry, but yeah, you would do it too. This guy was an animal lover. He's like, give me that rabbit, you know. So it's survival. So yeah,
dude. You mentioned Korean barbecue, man. I had a really funny experience at a Korean place with my wife. So she'd never been. In fact, you know, C Doan, C from Alliance.
Yeah, from Alliance. Yeah, he's got his own gym too.
Yeah, he does. So for C's birthday, we went to a Korean place, and it was Karen's first time ever having Korean barbecue. And so Karen was kind of like you, like she had a particular type of food that she grew up eating, and that was kind of always her home base. And she would occasionally try different things. She's much more, you know, adventurous with eating now. But when we were first together, it was hard to get her to eat anything outside of like rice, beans, and steak, right? And so we went to this Korean place, and they put out a little like baby, like not a baby, but like a squid, like a small squid on the grill. And to this day, I swear it was not alive, right? He was dead. But the heat, but you know how when things are fresh, they still kind of like flinch and move and kind of, you know, like the nerves.
There's probably water in it too, kind of like shrinking and stuff. Yeah,
exactly. So they turn on the fire and this thing kind of moves. And then I swear, dude, it didn't scream. She to this day argues with me that it was alive and that it was screaming. But some steam ended up like in its like crevices or whatever. And it made like a ee kind of noise as it went out. So this thing's moving and making a sound, bro. Karen turned green. Like she had to like sit back away from the table. She was like, I can't eat anything. I'm done. It's so like she sat there the whole time while all of us are like chowing down. But
so she didn't eat it?
No, bro, she didn't touch any. She had water like the whole dinner, and it was just because of that one thing. She just couldn't do it. So yeah, it's cool that you guys eat. You and your wife like Korean food, but I've tried to get her back into Korean food. I can't do it, man. We'll have to try it next time we're in Atlanta. You and your wife, you can come join us.
I mean, there's a lot of like easy ones like bulgogi. I mean, that's just meat and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But then they got some crazy things too. So
yeah. Dude, ramen's another big thing that's gotten real popular, especially in Atlanta. There's like ramen places that pop up everywhere.
Well, there's a huge Korean neighborhood here too. Yeah. Like I didn't know that was kind of a bonus for my wife, like moving.
Yeah, Duluth. I mean, she's like over in Duluth.
Dude, she's straight American. She don't even speak Korean. I tell people she does and doesn't speak English just to mess with her. But yeah, she's like pretty American, dude. Yeah. Awesome. But it was kind of cool to like have like as Korean, you know, areas and stuff. So because she grew up eating Korean food, so it's like, we can get that. I don't know how to make bulgogi, you know. So
yeah. No, they got like Super H Mart, and then like Duluth, the whole area of Duluth is like everything's in Korean and stuff. Yeah, that is cool. What do you think is who's your favorite grappler of all time? If you had to pick one grappler that's your all-time favorite, modern or past, who would you pick?
Wow, that's tough. Man, I feel like I feel like a lot of people probably say this too, but I mean, it's true. I think Marcelo, man, like he's just a great person. You think about what he came back from, right? Having cancer, beating cancer. He just seems like the nicest guy. And even the modern, you know, I'm getting back into training more in the gi again, but for a while I was like no gi. And I feel like even the modern no gi stuff you're seeing, a lot of it started with him and what he was doing and built off of that. So I think he was a huge influence on the jiu-jitsu community. So yeah. Yeah, and all my other coaches don't hate on me. I love all you guys too. So, yeah.
Who do you think's your favorite MMA fighter of all time?
Man, I'm gonna go with Matt Serra, and then honestly, any of the guys that fought in the UFC or Bellator, like Eddie Alvarez fought in both, but I think that for me, those guys, because I don't know, when you're attached to somebody, like, you know, I was in their camps, I trained with them. When they're fighting, I know it sounds dumb. It's almost like you're there, even though it's like,
no, of course.
I was like a purple belt when I was sparring with Matt. It's like, whatever, but it's like, oh my God, dude, he's fighting for the title. Like, it just made it so much more exciting, you know? So like any of those guys I train with. Yeah.
I love that you mentioned that, like, when you first started at Fight Factory, that Eddie Alvarez was a white belt. That's like crazy to think of. Like, he was just like a dude that walked into a gym one day. And
that's how old I am, bro.
No, but it is true. Like it is cool when you see these big, successful fighters and athletes. It's like, man, once upon a time, that was just a white belt that came in.
Yep.
So.
And we got to shout out Paul Crichton again too, man. BJ Penn, Paul Crichton fought BJ.
Dude,
only got to take him down. So
2 weeks notice. Yeah. First person ever taken down.
2 weeks notice. Another
purple belt.
Going back to sliding under the radar. Paul Crichton.
Yeah.
The beast in the cage.
Yeah.
So
incredible. Incredible. Yeah. What do you think is your biggest phobia?
Biggest phobia, being on camera. Nah.
Oh, you're doing good. You're doing great, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Being a firefighter, like you think I shouldn't be, but heights. So
Heights
like,
bothers you.
yeah. So we would have to do single slides and lowering a member. Basically, you'd be tied off on a roof, hanging on a rope, and get lowered down to rescue people. Or if you have to dive out of a window, just jamming a hook into the windowsill and just rolling out and sliding down on your rope. That didn't bother me. I don't know why. Maybe because I was attached to a rope. But like if you put me on a 35-foot extension ladder and it's like not sitting right and you're carrying gear and I'm like, God, dude, that's terrifying. Now, if there's a life at risk, like sure, but we would do that for drill and I was like, oh God, I hate this. You just, like what if I die just because we were practicing? You know what I mean? So yeah. And I think it kicked in because we had one run where this dude died. We showed up and he was like laying on the ground and it's like he fell off the ladder and I looked and it was a 6-foot ladder. I'm like, that's it. So then I was like, wait, that ladder, that 6 foot is what he died from. And I'm like, man, we're going up 110 feet aerial ladders. Like, so that's when I was like, oh my God, that's all it takes,
That's pretty sobering. Yeah. I mean, you fall the wrong way. That's it. Right. Jeez,
yeah.
That's sad. That's nuts. Final question for the pummel game, Tony. If martial arts didn't exist, what do you think you'd be doing with your life instead?
Martial arts didn't exist. Man, I always got to find that thing I'm passionate about and go with that. Like I've never done anything that I just don't like. Like I just will fail at it. I have to be obsessed with it. I like working with my hands. Like, I don't know why I've been obsessed with like camping and getting out in nature. So maybe like building like, I don't know, like the little teardrop campers, something like that, like starting my own business, doing something like that. I definitely would have to work for myself. Getting out of the jobs I did, I tried working for people for a little and it didn't work out. It's just like, I can't do it, man. Yeah. I can't sit in an office. I can't, I got to be like my own boss. Yeah. So something that's like cool. That. Yeah.
I like that it hasn't taken you that long to become like an outdoorsy person. You went from being in New York, being surprised by seeing a horse to like
I've
now
embraced
like
the
camping.
South, bro. I got the long hair, the beard.
Yeah, dude.
Look at
you.
Yeah.
Look at you. It'll be just a few more years. You'll have your own cabin with a manifesto or something. Like you'll have like a Unabomber type situation. Yeah.
I'm trying to get a cabin or something for sure. Yeah.
There you go. See, that's how it starts.
It's something about just unplugging that's just refreshing,
Yeah.
I just really got into that lately. Yeah.
They're gonna refer to you as Old Man Tony. Like, don't go over on Old Man Tony's property. He'll shoot you with his double barrel. Tony, that was the last question for the pummel game, man. Congratulations, you win. You got your double underhooks.
Sick. Can I pull guard or I got
you can because your guard is way better than mine. So yes, of course you can. Tony, let me ask you, man. So as from a teacher's perspective, we talked about how all the aspects of running a school and things like that. When it comes to advanced techniques, what do you think are some things over time in jiu-jitsu that have changed to where something that I guess back in the day would have been reserved more for more advanced students is now really necessary to teach to new students because of how much the game has evolved? Is there any aspects of jiu-jitsu that you feel are used to be considered advanced, but nowadays really should be taught pretty early?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy one is leg locks. Heel hooks in particular. I think they're just more mainstream now. I think people are learning how to train them safer now. I think because they're getting implemented earlier in people's training, it's becoming more of a norm and they're just not as taboo as they used to be. It's also something that you have to know. Like, whether you want to play them or not, you have to know they're there and the threat of them and how to deal with them. So we do them pretty early at Iron Horse. A lot of times if it's a super packed day, I'm just watching class and guys know the rules. It's like a kind of inside joke. I'm always like, don't heel hook the children because we got kids in the class and stuff. And you get some rambunctious young guy and he's like ripping a heel hook on like a middle school. I'm like, dude, no. So I'm always like, hey, don't heel hook the kids. And, if you're not comfortable with them, don't do them. By the time you're, got a few stripes on your white belt, you've probably seen them enough in our gym. So you're probably pretty comfortable. But if you're ever not comfortable doing something, I always tell people, like, just let them know, man. Just let them know. Like, hey, like I'm not cool with the heel hooks right now or whatever. So.
Yeah. I think the leg lock thing that there was a lot of, what's the word? I guess there's definitely a stigma that existed for leg locks for a long time, I think. And that all, of course, changed as the Danaher squad got out there and showed how successful you could be if you knew them, how to use them properly. I think that there was there was an unrealistic amount of fear for leg locks, because really at the end of the day, you're attacking a human joint, just like you do with a Kimura, just like you do with an arm bar, just like you do with anything. And you're taking it beyond the breaking point. And it's up to you to know when to tap. Like if your arm's fully extended in an arm bar, you need to be able to recognize, okay, this is in, this is checkmate, I got to tap. I guess people didn't know how to escape them properly and didn't recognize when it was checkmate. And so injuries would happen, but I never saw them as anything more dangerous than really anything else. Like I've seen horrible injuries with Kimuras because someone didn't tap. Like what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that leg locks are more dangerous than other submissions, or do you think that it was just something based out of ignorance?
I think probably like how people get injured with them is it just, there's not a lot of range of motion for it to go from like it's on to like pop, and I feel like the person that's caught in it, if they're not familiar with what to do, that's usually how they get hurt with them, like heel hooks in general. Because if I have it locked on, and like I call it taking out the slack, where you just kind of get all that rotation out, all that slack out, and then as you apply the pressure, like that's where you're gonna get the break on the knee or whatever. So if I take out that slack or whatever, and that guy spins in the wrong direction or does something wrong because he's freaking out, if I'm not good enough to let go of that, he's going to pop his own knee. And if that guy doesn't know how to address the entanglement or how to deal with the heel hook, he can pop his own knee as well. So again, I think it just comes with just being around them more and then just training them safely. And then you're not so like stressed out about it, so you don't react crazy. Because that's the thing. You just violently spin out of that and you're just going to hurt yourself. So, yeah.
Yeah, I really do feel like a lot of it was just a lack of education. Like when you understand, how the mechanics of a particular move work and what the breaking point is, well, then you recognize, okay, I'm stuck. This is it. I got to tap. And right. To me, that was no different whether it was a heel hook or a Kimura. So there was all this. Now, of course, everyone's using leg locks for the most part. Right. But I remember early on, people were kind of like, "Oh, this is crazy that everyone's introducing these heel hooks. These are so dangerous." And I'm like, dude, I don't know. I don't get it. And I feel like the schools that allowed their white belts and blue belts and stuff to start learning it, they were just so far ahead now when it came to competition. Because if there's tournaments where they allowed those within the rule set, those guys are going to have a huge competitive edge now.
Yeah, for sure. I had to pick it back up at black belt with the heel hooks because I was pretty new to them. Yeah. Jason Rao kind of opened my eyes to those. I went to visit and he just wrecked me with them. I was like, dude, what? Come on, man. You got to help me out with this stuff. And then that's where I went down that no-gi rabbit hole for a while. So, yeah. Yeah.
Now, you're actually the one that turned me on to Jason Rao. Yeah, I remember you talking about him back when we were training together. Like, man, there's this guy up there. You got to check him out. And yeah, he's been on the show too now, actually. In fact, we shouted you out when he was on. But he's he's great, man. There's tons of great guys that put out really, really good leg lock content. That's actually an aspect of my game that I like leg locks a lot, but I don't consider myself to be any sort of expert or master of them. That's something I'm very much working on in my game still too. What are your thoughts on that? Like as a new black belt, I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on developing your game as a black belt? Like how much growth has there been really in your game once you became a black belt compared to the years you spent before black?
It's like they say, man, I feel like I'm starting over. I feel like I started over. Like I have a better understanding of jiu-jitsu. So I feel like I've actually progressed a lot more as a black belt than all those years before. And I just, for me, I just I'll pick one thing and I kind of obsess over it, man. And anybody that's good at it at all, like I'm studying them. So like I was obsessed with crab ride. So everybody good at crab ride stuff I was studying. With the leg lock stuff, anybody that was good with the leg lock stuff I was studying, obviously Jason Rao being one of them. When I was with Sean, Paul Crichton, because all that Danaher stuff kind of trickled down. Like even when I was at Matt Serra's, like I wasn't specifically training with those guys, but like Matt was, Matt referred to him as like New Zealand John, and he'd be like, "Hey, I'm going to train with New Zealand John," and all that stuff trickled down, trickled down to Paul, I'm sure. So just using your resources, man, and just don't get too crazy with it, like all over the place. It's almost like you're a white belt again, and white belts tend to do that, right? It's like hey, I'm working, like they'll come in with it, hey, I'm working foot sweeps. And then literally 2 minutes later, they're doing like heel hooks. And I'm like, it's like, you just stick with something for a while, man. Like, like I'll work on things for years.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
my
Not,
advice, man. But you know what you're doing, I mean, you're a black belt, so it's just refining things. Small details is what's huge now. It's like, I've seen that armbar a million times, but it's like, oh, wait, what is that? Oh, that's why I'm not getting the tap or whatever. So it's little things like that. So
yeah. No, I appreciate that, man. And that is very true. Like, yeah, I'll always, I always try to seek people that have more knowledge than me and pick their brains. In fact, when I was in Atlanta, Chris, my brother, and I, did a private with you, and you mentioned the crab ride earlier. And that's exactly one of the things that we worked on. You showed us some of your crab ride stuff you've been really zoomed in on lately.
yeah.
I'd like to talk about that too, because you actually just made an instructional. Your first instructional with us here at BJJ Fanatics is all about the crab ride. So when did that first become something you were really interested in? And what do you think is the greatest benefit of really learning how to do that and use the crab ride efficiently?
I don't remember. It might have been maybe Alec, like, used it on me once, and I was like, man, this is so annoying, dude. Because it's like you become like a tumbleweed. You're just all over the mat. And you're just constantly chasing your back, and it makes you look kind of silly. And you're just like,
Yeah.
dude, I feel like I just got dominated here. What's going on? And then I just started going down that rabbit hole, and then it was like, I just studying guys like I study a lot of like Lachlan. I like him. He does a lot of crab ride stuff. Actually, I think I mentioned him in the instructional too. Like Levi Jones, when I saw him in like CJI, I was like, dude, that's the game I'm trying to build. And I just kind of like, man, like once you'll see this too. Like you said, when you get your black belt, what do you work on? Like you have an understanding more than than most people. So like once I realized, like, okay, if I can expose their hamstring and connect my shin to it, like I can get into this crab ride game. And then I started being like, oh, okay, so when they attack my legs here, oh, okay, it's giving me an opportunity to get to the back of that leg and start chasing the back and stuff like that. And then it just became like, I don't know, it just became fun and an obsession for me. So I just like went down a rabbit hole for a few years of just doing this stuff. And I mean, luckily I have a lot of good leg lockers that are always trying to attack my legs. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start working, try to figure out how to counter this with like bolos and crab rides and stuff like that. So yeah. And obviously if you get to the back, I mean, everybody regards that as the best position. So I'm still building on my own crab ride game, but that game itself is more like countering, which I find I don't know. It's just fun to me. Like, that might be one of my favorite things in jiu-jitsu. It's like when someone's like, oh, I got what I want. And it's like, nope, I got what I want. So like, yeah, it's just fun to me, man. It's like, oh, I got his leg. It's like, no, I got your back, and then it makes him go like, I don't want to do that again. So
It is a really cool game. In fact, when you and I were rolling when I was in Atlanta for the holidays, yeah, I mean, dude, you must have taken my back like 5 times with the crowd. And I was just like, damn, dude, like once the person gets, like you said, they get that positioning with the legs behind the calf, and then when they sink down behind your hip line, it's like recovering from that is just so damn difficult.
And I think that was, I think we were in the gi too, right? So
we were in the gi, yeah.
It's god awful in the gi.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Pant grips, collar grips.
Yeah.
I was actually talking to Alec about this recently because we'll get in little crab ride battles and he'll end up like getting in my back and he wins the battle. And I'm like, and it's because I started the crab ride game in no gi. So I'm looking for effective no gi grips when that pant and collar is right there, right? You get that collar, it's like, oh man, he got me beat here with that. Yeah. But you don't have that collar grip in the gi and no gi. So yeah.
Yeah, no, but still, and then when I was doing the private class with you and my brother, you were showing just the no-gi variations of stuff, and it's incredibly effective.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of the common mistakes you see people make with crab ride? Like when they're trying to implement that game, what are the most common corrections you make in your students?
Yeah, the biggest thing is and it's the first thing we started with, or I started with in the instructional, is how to expose their lower back, how to get their lower back up off the mat. Because no gi, it's hard to get the upper back exposed, right? It's easy with the gi. You got grips and stuff like that. And generally guys will start to like push away and get their shoulders on the mat, make them real heavy. So you kind of got to get their hips off the mat, their lower back off the mat, and then get them into like your hip pocket, right? So that you can then climb up to the upper back. And then getting their back off the mat, that's kind of one of the things that I feel like people struggle with the crab ride. So I went over, there's a ton of ways you can do it. I went over like the main ways that I use. And then there's like a little mini mini system in there that I call chasing lower back exposure. So if you don't ever get them in that pocket of your hips and they fall on the mat instead of inside of your hips, how to continually chase that lower back and expose that lower back so that you can kind of reset it and get them in your hips and then start to climb. Because most people, even with the bolo too, with like the wedge, they just try to climb to the back too quick and their hips are on the mat. And then it's just like, basically they're going to slide away. It's like losing the back mount hooks and they're just sliding out of the way. So you got to like recover, get them back inside of your hip pocket. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I think that's the biggest thing that people struggle with.
Yeah. Yeah. I distinctly remember you pointing that out to my brother and I too. So yeah, I could definitely see that being a common occurrence. Well, man, so your instructional you just made with us, it's all about the crab ride. I really recommend it, guys. Is there a name for the instructional already? Did you guys come up with a name?
Countering with the crab ride. Yeah. Yep. I think that's the fun and easiest way to get into playing crab ride in no-gi, because when you got to break people down to the mat in no-gi, it's definitely harder to do. You know, if you're going to play like matrix back takes and stuff like that. Yeah. So just having them expose their leg or their back to you first and then just getting into it it's kind of fun and easy to do. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I can't wait to see the instructional. Like I said, guys, Tony literally just wrapped up filming it. So it's still being processed. By the time this episode goes out, hopefully it'll be on the website. So go to bjjfanatics.com, type in Anthony's name and you'll find it. I really do recommend it. He's a wealth of knowledge, especially in this position. This is something he's really put a lot of time and effort into. So check it out. Tony, in closing, man, what are some of your major goals for 2025? What are some things you hope to accomplish this year?
Yeah, I mean, again, dude, like I'm going on 45. So as far as like my actual performance on the mats and competing and all that, like I'm kind of moved past that. I think my next role in this jiu-jitsu world is to pass on my knowledge. I'm trying to be a better instructor. Just because you're good at jiu-jitsu or whatever doesn't mean you're a good instructor. So studying guys that, again, like my coaches, Sean, Paul Crichton, all my former coaches, Matt Serra, Lucas, picking up how they pass on the information and trying to do that as well. The guys I study, I think like Lachlan Giles is a great instructor. So how he distributes the information, I'm just trying to get better at that and grow the gym and grow the skills of the guys in the gym. That's it, man.
Well, folks, unfortunately, we're fresh out of time. Tony, always great to chop it up with you, man. I appreciate you taking the time to be here. Like I said, you've had a big impact on my game, particularly with my guard passing and a lot of my leg entry stuff that I do. So thank you for that. And it was really a pleasure to get to share your story here with everyone. You're welcome back on the show anytime.
That'd be awesome, man. Thank you, guys. This has been incredible. I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Of course. No, of course. It was a blast. I really had a great time talking with you, as always. For anyone out there that wants to keep up with Tony, it's easy to do so. He's got a Facebook page for his academy. It's Iron Horse BJJ. On Instagram, it's iron_horse_BJJ. And then you guys can also check out ironhorsebjj.com. If you guys are ever traveling through the Atlanta area, he's just north of Atlanta in an area called Alpharetta and Milton. It's kind of that area there. One of the best places to train in the area for sure. You guys got to drop in if you're ever passing through. But if you can't pass through and get over to Iron Horse Jiu-Jitsu, you can learn from Tony anywhere in the world here at bjjfanatics.com. He just wrapped up his newest instructional and actually his first instructional. It's called Countering with the Crab Ride, and it's available right now at bjjfanatics.com. So go check that out. And that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in. Please stay tuned for the next episode of the BJJ Fanatics podcast.